Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eli Leinblum, and I'm the Strategic Research Development Officer for the Faculty of Music and the convener of the Toronto Music Entrepreneurship Exchange. I want to welcome you all to this session, Innovations in Music Performance and Research, and begin with a land acknowledgement. I wish to acknowledge this land on which I live and work. For thousands of years, Toronto has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. This land is subject to the Dish with One Spoon territory, a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Toward that end, I aspire to do work that can move beyond acknowledgement toward acts of reciprocity that welcome stewards of the land, Indigenous communities, and artists into our spaces of learning and art making. I am thrilled to join Entrepreneurship Week this year and would like to thank the Toronto Music Entrepreneurship Exchange Advisory Working Group for their support. Thanks to the entrepreneurship staff for being so welcoming to their virtual space, especially John French, Allison Bruce, and Melanie Langemeyer. This event is made possible through the Provost Fund for Entrepreneurship and the Faculty of Music. During today's session, we'll hear from 4 speakers in a lightning round style presentations of their work in this unique gathering of current student and recent alum. After their talks, we'll begin a Q&A and discussion. You are all most welcome to participate by writing to us through the Hopin platform. Let's get started. Joining us today is Adam Feinman, a singer, songwriter, performer, educator, and multimedia producer from Winnipeg, Manitoba. He earned his master's degree in music technology here from the University of Toronto, his bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Winnipeg, and a diploma specializing in video and animation at Red River College. Adam is an audio production instructor at Red River College, a freelance producer, and an artist. His passion is rooted in self-expression through music and media, and is an advocate for international collaboration. Throughout his career, Adam has been well-funded, achieving awards such as the Mitacs Globalink Research Award for his work in blending vocal percussion with contemporary music production. Most recently, he received both Manitoba Arts Council and Canada Arts Council funding for his production and project management of an intergenre and intergenerational collaboration with his mother, singer-songwriter Rachel Kane. Please join me in welcoming Adam. Adam, nice to see you.
Hey, great to see you too. Yeah, I guess I'll just jump right into it.
Please do.
Let me start by sharing this and hiding. Can you see everything good?
Looks great.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so as Eli said, I'm a recent graduate from the University of Toronto. I got my master's in the music technology and multimedia program. I also have a background in sort of computer science and video. So that's why I consider myself sort of first and foremost a multimedia producer. I'm sure, as you know, if you're in the music world, you may have songs and concerts, but it's hard for marketing and sort of things in general if there isn't a video or accompanying visual. So I really feel like I've got kind of both of those domains. I'm focusing on both of those. And when I first went into the U of T, it was as a vocal percussionist, also known as beatboxing. So that's sort of my main tool when it comes to expressing myself musically, sort of communicating beats and production. And I also write lyrics, and so I also consider myself a performing artist. So, when I'm songwriting for myself or songwriting with other artists, I come at it with a beatboxing approach, and I'll talk about more how that sort of developed at the U of T and since in the last few years, and also as a songwriter with lyrics. So, quickly over the next few minutes, I'll be covering what exactly is beatboxing and what makes it such a great tool. And then I came across this technology called doubler technology, and I'll kind of go deeper into that and how it really was like the perfect tool for me that I came across in my second year at U of T. And it really helped bridge that gap between human expression and my beatboxing and electronic music, and being able to create this really full, big production that I've always wanted to achieve. And then I'll kind of deep dive a bit more into collaborative opportunities. Obviously, I mentioned recently got a Canadian Arts Council grant working with my mom, which was incredible and something that was sort of manifesting from my time during COVID, kind of being stuck in Canada, or stuck in Winnipeg, I should say. But there's other really great collaborative opportunities that have happened over the few years that I always really I try to tell everybody to really get out of their comfort zone and try working with other people. So to begin with, beatboxing, we say vocal percussion, also known as beatboxing. It utilizes the voice and the mouth to express rhythm, beats, and melody. And I find it extremely accessible. And when people say, "Oh, how do you do that?" Obviously, just like with any other instrument, just with practice. And I really believe that anybody can do it with a bit of practice. I'm currently even teaching some kid in Slovenia, and I've taught students from around the world. And I really feel if you can talk, if you can produce really any sounds with your mouth, you're able to beatbox. And I find it also beautiful because it's your own expression, it's your own voice, and everyone sounds a little different. And what's really great, and what I've been able to sort of discover the last 4 or 5 or so years, especially during the couple of years I was studying it at U of T, is that beatboxing can be used in a lot of different genres. And so as you see, sort of the picture here is I'm using one microphone to capture the mouth and then another microphone to capture throat kick sound. And during the last latter half of 2018, I produced this record called The Musical Mind. And this was my thesis, essentially exploring different ways to record beatboxing. So originally it was one microphone, and then we started doing this 2 microphone setup, and then we started incorporating electronics and triggering. But I do tell people that it's fairly easy to record, and just a really accessible art form and a way of expressing beats. And I also produced a second record called the Detox Experiment, and that really explored beatboxing and more as a songwriting tool, a little less on the recording, but more as like a way of approaching like a jazz band. Or like a band of musicians, and communicating beats and melody and rhythm to them using beatboxing. So, and then during that process of making that record, I came across this doubler microphone. And so this technology, what it does is it takes voice or beatboxing and converts it to MIDI in real time. And so if you see on the top left here, we have these different drum triggers. So you can train it. So let's say I make a kick sound. It can learn that kick sound and then trigger an electronic MIDI sound. So it can be another kick, an electronic kick, an 808, or it can be a completely different sound altogether. And you can learn up to 8 nodes, 8 different sounds. And all of a sudden, the potential is huge for being able to beatbox a human expression, but be able to trigger a jazz kit or a rock kit or a folk kit or something completely different altogether. And then there's also this voice side where, for me, I hum my melodies or I hum bass lines. So I can hum an idea and it'll tell me what notes I'm humming. It can then also trigger an electronic bass or trumpet or an orchestra, and all of a sudden now I can sing and beatbox at the same time and do an orchestra with a drum kit, let's say. So there's tons of crazy opportunities, and this was what I was sort of developing, like learning how to master this software. And I ended up actually winning their video competition and kind of getting on their radar, and developed like a sponsorship with them. And so I was able to produce videos and eventually master classes on this technology after graduating, sort of during COVID, which kind of brings me to the collaborative opportunities, and something that I've always done and sort of ties into my U of T experience too, because with Mitacs for the Globalink Research, I was able to go to Austria and connect with a bunch of these musicians here, and we were able to perform in various festivals in Croatia and Slovenia. They actually ended up coming to Canada before the pandemic to perform some shows as well. Sort of different ways of being able to blend beatboxing with jazz musicians was really cool. And it was a pretty surreal experience being able to show up somewhere where English isn't their first language, but I'm able to beatbox and do music, and all of a sudden we're able to communicate. And then here, this was this project with my mom that I realized I could use beatboxing with that doubler microphone and regular microphones, and create an album in a more folk electronic feel. Well, you'll soon hear more about it. This was the project that I just landed the Canada Arts Council grant for. So we'll be producing it over the next 6 months. And then other interesting opportunities that have come around with beatboxing and music technology was this Canadian Songwriter Challenge in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And just to give a quick overview, so when I first started the U of T, I was beatboxing and beginning to start to work with it in the songwriting sense. Was able to receive this award to continue developing that and learn ways of recording and collaborating. We did that. I did the doubler competition, and have now been in the last few years developing more songs and videos with them, and also in general. And being able to find really great ways to be able to produce and use this niche, a very specific instrument that I have in my mouth, and create really cool opportunities by working with my mom and other musicians and artists really around the world. And moving forward, I'd like to start being able to perform live with doubler. Everything has been more in a production setting and in a controlled environment, but I'm looking to work with them to be able to perform this live. We almost did, but the pandemic kind of paused it. So I've just been developing ways on how to create a great live set and explore other ways to do voice to MIDI. And that's basically the quick under speed round of beatboxing in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That's marvelous. I'm going to take the opportunity to just ask you just a quick couple questions about just your use of technology and collaborating with folks. We'll have an opportunity for longer discussion at the end, but Adam, I'm wondering if you can just tell me what it's like to incorporate this new tech that's really it feels like it's really on the cutting edge of how people are using digital audio workstations and how people are using software in their production. And I think, having seen a couple of your YouTube videos where you actually, show how to use this and how to get it set up, I'm totally blown away with the technology. I think it's just such a novel application of it, and you make it look very easy. I'm wondering what it's like in terms of the differences between if you were to just, play either without a mic or with a mic, and then using this technology. How does that feel different? And how does it tie in to the research that you've already done about creating really an index of beatboxing sounds?
I would say I'm still learning to, it's almost like a different brain gets activated when you're like, when you're beatboxing normally, it's just sort of fluid. And then when you start introducing technology, there are definitely moments where I sort of have this technology ear that turns on that's like, oh, whoa, this happens. And it has a bit of a life of its own. So sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it can be for the worse. Like it'll misfire. So I'll beatbox a certain feeling and then it'll register a hi-hat instead of a kick or instead of a snare. And you get these interesting ghost notes. And then sometimes it's amazing. You're like, wow, I would have never beatboxed this. And, good thing we recorded it. And then other moments you're like, this isn't quite working. But so it's an interesting tool. And it's just like, I guess anything with microphone and production, you're sort of reacting to the creation that's happening. So I think it's really fun, and I love technology. So I think there's a lot of really beautiful, happy moments that happen. Obviously, it's great when it works. I think I make it look really good online because I spent a lot of time during the pandemic practicing and working, making it great. There's definitely hundreds of hours of it not working, but I think that's the fun beauty of it, and it is on the cutting edge. And ultimately, I think it's allowed me to create sound, like a really full sound, which was something my research I was struggling with, trying to get beatboxing to just sound really big. And I feel like now I'm starting to get close to where like what I'm envisioning is actually coming to fruition.
Oh, thanks. And how does the use of this technology continue to further your own mission of working across genres? Does it allow you to make sounds that fit in with other genres that otherwise you wouldn't be able to make? Or how does that work?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the big first thing is the kick. So my kick is really quiet. I can make like a sound, and I'm now able to just trigger louder kicks and different kicks. And with my mom's music, I can articulate the feeling and the groove, but I can substitute different kicks and different snares and different drum sounds that maybe fit to what she was hearing, so that I can still provide the groove, but then the sounds fit the genre or fit the new genre. Maybe we're trying to get something that is new, that's not mouth, not acoustic and not electronic, and we can now blend it. So it's allowed me to work with her, and also in other capacities, like overseas. I've been doing stuff with they're called Free Kind, and they do sort of groove R&B, hip hop, and again that allows my snares and my hi-hats and stuff to be a bit more fitting in that genre as well. And it's then there's still more to find out. I'm always learning new things with this tech. They just released a whole new software update like a few months ago, so I'm still trying to figure it out, and it takes time, but it's exciting.
Yeah. What's your relationship like with Doubler as a brand and as a company? It sounds like there's a process that you can be involved in that's really iterative, where you're providing as much feedback as they're providing you with new opportunities through their updates. What's that like?
It's awesome. I'm actually really, and I try to tell this, I want to tell other musicians, like if there's companies, especially small startup companies, that you're like, I really love their product, just really reach out to them, because they're just people, and they're also just trying to figure it out as well sometimes. And that's kind of what I did. And they're not a big team. There's maybe 6-7 of them. And they were like, hey, can you send us your beatboxing samples so that we can make our software better? And it's like, what? That's a dream come true. And so now I'm working with them to like help develop their software better, to then help me perform and produce better. So I think if you're ever in a situation where if you're a musician and you're working with whether it's, I got lucky because it's a brand new product, but even existing companies, you can always reach out. We're artists, we're content creators, we're hot commodity, and they're looking for people. I know it may not always seem like that, but we make great content, and if you can make great content, then that's really exciting for companies. And so they were, I think, pretty ecstatic that I'm now able to produce these videos and use their product really well. And to them, it's just great marketing. So it works out really well. And working with them has been tremendous. And yeah, it's really fun.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Adam. We'll get back to you during the discussion, and we'll move on to our next lightning round panelist. Born and raised in Manila, Filipino mezzo-soprano Rene Fallardo has performed on both the opera stage and as a solo recitalist in the Philippines, the UK, Europe, and Canada. Equally passionate about performance and offstage creative practice, Renee sings with the Nathaniel Det Chorale and is a mentor and provincial coordinator for the opera education collective Opera InReach. She also volunteers as an institutional giving intern with Boulanger Initiative, working on funding opportunities to support and advocate for works composed by women and marginalized gender composers. Winner of the Metcalf Performing Arts Grant, Renee is the producing intern at Against the Grain Theater. Welcome, Renee. Nice to see you.
Hi, Eli. It's good to see you again. It's been a while. And hi, everyone who's tuning in. It's good to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. All right, Renee, away you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about like this whole entire journey. As you've mentioned, by training, I was or am an opera performer. But really throughout the pandemic, I think specifically beginning with the clamor for more equity, diversity, inclusion after the murder of George Floyd, I had sort of pivoted my interest in the performing arts towards what it means to have advocacy and allyship in the center of your performance practice. And this journey really started at U of T. Like, as you know, Eli, like we worked at the Anti-Racism, Anti-Oppression Committee together in my last year at U of T. And it's the reason that I went with Against the Grain Theater for my Metcalf internship, which I'm actually currently finishing at the moment. So I'm finishing at the end of this month. So I'm finishing my work with Against the Grain Theater. But really, like from performing, I wanted to shift focus on how I could really develop or arm myself with a skill set that will allow me to be a better advocate for artists and arts workers from historically marginalized communities and identities, or not historically, but marginalized communities and identities. And through my work with Against the Grain, I sort of like discovered really for myself the kind of like the nuts and bolts of that, of what it means to be that active ally or advocate. It's everything from starting conversations about policies within companies. It's learning how to read a contract. It's learning how to engage artists. It's learning also how to self-start like your own projects and support projects by artists who also come from marginalized identities as well. Which sort of also leads me to my work with Opera InReach. At the moment, like Opera InReach is also working with Against the Grain to kind of to facilitate this partnership that will allow both companies to engage in more community-centric programming for opera initiatives and opera productions. And being part of Opera InReach as Ontario Provincial Coordinator, like I've seen how the civic practice that is within Opera InReach has sort of begun to inform the way that Against the Grain is now looking to program their season. And part of the first projects that we did between Opera InReach and Against the Grain was the Messiah Project, which is basically my first biggest project that wasn't in performance. And just to briefly touch on what the Messiah Project is, it's based on Against the Grain Theater's Messiah Complex, which was a reimagining of Handel's Messiah that was released in 2020. Though the years are kind of like, are kind of in a mishmash in my head, but essentially it was a reimagining of Handel's Messiah that had a more, a more authentic and robust Canadian identity, whatever, that means to many different people. And with the Messiah Project that we did just this past December with Opera InReach, what the idea was that we wanted to bring the experience of creating work that is meaningful to a high school community directly to that community. So essentially the output was a music video of Handel's Messiah as a chorus that was being performed by two high school choirs in two different provinces in Canada. And we sent Opera InReach and Against the Grain Theater, we sent our respective production teams to these two high school choirs and then they created their sort of like own twist to the Hallelujah chorus, which was really quite beautiful to see. But I mean, I do have like a clip of sort of like the trailer explaining the project. So I will let the trailer sort of speak for itself, and then we can just go on from there in a little bit.
Hi, my name is Andrew Adridge.
And I'm David Pepper.
And we are the co-founders of Opera and Reach. We're going to introduce you to a wonderful project called the Messiah Project in collaboration with Against the Grain Theater and Opera and Reach. The Messiah Project comes from Against the Grain Theater's 2020 production called Messiah Complex, a unique take on Handel's Messiah that sought to bring more social relevance to the piece by introducing it to a Canadian community, bringing in all sorts of Canadian people, Indigenous and immigrant, really making up our nation, and searching for more social relevance in a piece that was very historically European. The project is an opportunity for students to come together and understand this piece in a context that's unique to them.
So what we're looking for in an application for the Messiah Project, we want to get to know your community. We're not looking for musical perfection, a polished performance. We're looking for heart and soul and the essence of who you are and where you're from. We encourage all people to apply in a manner that suits them best in their creative skills, whether that be a video, a reel, a TikTok, a letter, a painting, however it may be, something that lets us know who you are in your community and gives us a taste of what we can expect when creating music video with you.
The schools chosen for the Messiah Project will get the chance to work with a professional video crew and an audio engineer to professionally record your video. We send these people to your school and capture you in front of a landmark or a community destination that is unique and important and impactful to your community. Along with that, you'll get the chance to work with Messiah Project and Messiah Complex artists, along with a professional music clinician or choral director in your community that will work with you to really perfect that Hallelujah chorus. Against the Grain Theater and Opera and Reach will also share your video, and you'll be featured in a special broadcast of the Messiah Complex in a combined video with the schools that are able to participate in this project. We're really excited to get to know your community, and we want all types of Canadians, whether you feel like you have the experience to sing the Hallelujah chorus, or maybe you're just a new choir coming to the music for the first time. We want to see you and we want to see what's unique about your community.
Right. So that was the trailer for the Messiah Project that I actually also assembled. So it's been a sort of like mishmash of just skills development and use, I guess, within like my capacity as a Metcalf producing intern. But essentially, like, you know, what I really learned from that project and what we found like extremely valuable, or not even valuable, but extremely moving and meaningful is that the ability of this project to, or for music to be able to essentially like touch the lives of high school students in a way that's most meaningful to them and their communities. And this is just the beginning of what we're wanting to do with Opera and Reach, and only the first project of a series of projects that we're now planning with Against the Grain Theater, which will obviously like look very different depending on what production we're doing educational programming for. Moving from that, because my internship with Against the Grain is a producing internship, I have sort of also been able to use the mentorship that I'm getting from the directors of Against the Grain to help me develop my own projects. And one of these projects is called Liham, which is a song cycle, or which will be a digital song cycle centering on the experiences of Filipino Canadian immigrants, because I am Filipino, as was mentioned in my bio. And really, this project is now in development. And I will show you a clip of the first song that we recorded for grants applications. But essentially, the idea behind it is just to make the Filipino immigrant experience visible within the Western classical repertoire, because I all the time, like, I felt that was something that I didn't see, and I felt something that I could really speak to, because it was my experience, and it was a way for me to reach out and be able to collaborate with artists who had similar backgrounds to mine. And it's been a whirlwind of learning, and it's just so much joy to be able to do it. And just jumping on the Canada Council, I guess, like, grant recipients, Liham actually reserved, God, I can't speak, I'm just so excited. Liham actually was able to secure funding from both the Ontario Arts Council and the Canada Council to first be created and then also to be produced. So we do have funding to produce the full cycle of 4 songs. Currently, we have 1 song that's been composed. So yeah, without further ado, this is the first song of Liham called Child of the Sun Revolting. And I am performing in it along with U of T coach and pianist Andrea Grant. Thank you. for the support. And yeah, so I mean, that's sort of like what's been kind of like keeping me busy too, and the whole joy of my journey, I guess, in the last 2 years, but specifically, I guess, in the last year. Yeah, it's kind of finding a different perspective to the performance side of the career. I think it's really realizing that there is space for civic practice, there is space for advocacy, there is space for your identity, and there is space for people to learn how to support others who are wanting to bring as much or as little of their identity to any performance, to any sort of artistic work. That there is space for that, and it's hard, I guess, to find the community that will be receptive and that will support you, but I guess my thing now is I just hope that I can be that community to the artists that I meet, and that the communities that I'm part of can also be bigger communities to other artists that are also seeking to do this kind of to enact this kind of perspective within the industry. So there. Don't know if that made any sense.
Absolutely. Renee, thank you so much for sharing everything that you're working on. I can't believe that it's only been, it's only been a few months that you've been out of the program and you've done so much. So I'm really blown away and so grateful that we got to hear more about it. I was hoping that you could tell me more about the role of social innovation in your work and in collaboration with arts organizations. How does that translate onto the stage? What looks different to you? What feels different for the audience? And how does it change arts organizations?
Yeah, it's a massive question, but I think really the change, at least the kind of change that I feel is palpable, starts within actually in Zoom rooms like this. Because I find that, with even working within Opera and Reach, it's finding a sense of community, specifically in the times when things can really become difficult in trying to produce works like this. For example, none of us knew how to produce music videos for the Messiah Project. That was something that we had to learn on the fly. And it started really with having long conversations with David and Andrew, who you saw in the trailer video and who are the co-founders of Opera and Reach. It started with long conversations about how, because we are an education collective, like what does it mean for us to take a work like Messiah Complex to the high school communities that we wanted to reach in a way that wasn't just forwarding basically the Messiah Complex that ATG has already presented. We didn't want to be another advertisement for the Messiah Complex. The focus of it was in the community experience of the choirs, and that I didn't bring the video of the testimonials of the of the community of the choir directors and the students, but really, that was what really hit us when we finished that project. It's not something that you would necessarily see in a streamed output. It's something that you see when you're there doing the work with them. It's the way that they speak about what music, at least in this context, what that music meant to them, what being able to gather together after the pandemic and not being able to sing live meant to them as high schoolers who didn't necessarily wanted to become opera singers or conductors or professional musicians. These are just, young people who wanted to make music with their peers. And it's that. And I think you asked about like how this translates to organizational practice. For Against the Grain, it means that now they are Against the Grain and Opera and Reach are looking to really formalize this partnership. So at first it was just we were Against the Grain was kind of like, it was interested in what Opera and Reach was doing and was mentoring the young collective into what it means to become an independent organization, if that was the sensible path for it. But now it's really finding that there is shared there are shared values between two organizations, and that an organization that ATG that has been with the Toronto community for like 12 years has a way to really elevate, I guess, the work that Opera and Reach, while also giving Opera and Reach the freedom to do what the collective wants to do. So it's not dictating what we should be doing as an education collective. It's really just saying, essentially, like we can support you. How do you want to be supported, or do you want to even be supported? It's really just that. And it's the beginning of those conversations that I feel should be practiced more, I guess, in a lot of arts organizations. And I'm hoping that it will be.
That's an amazing partnership that that Opera and Reach and Against the Grain have established and are continuing to cultivate, and certainly one that can be a model for other partnerships. You know, clearly accessibility is a priority for you. You value the experience of the mentor-mentee relationship. Can you tell me a little bit about what drives you to facilitate those types of relationships, those one-to-one, peer-to-peer relationships, and how are they supportive for both mentor and mentee?
Yeah, this is actually, in my experience in the last few years, has really just been a strong experience of mentorship and having found people that aligned with my values too, as a person and as an artist. And that, you know, it's really at the root of it. I think it's the openness to conversations that starts this kind of mentorship, because ultimately it is about a relationship. It's not, and you asked me what drives me to facilitate this kind of partnership or way of working. It's really being able to cultivate relationships that allow for the conversations of artistic practice to be broader. So it's not just, you know, how are you doing with your auditions, or what grants are you fulfilling, or what techniques are you, what vocal technique are you working at the moment, and how can I help you become a better singer or sing better French or Italian? You know, it's not that. It's finding mentorships that are also, for me, like outside of performance, that allowed me to ask questions about essentially what grants, for example, like what grants can I apply for? Can I ask you to, for example, to look at whatever grant narrative I'm developing at the moment? You know, it's all of these like really small things, and having the space to ask those questions, and also having the space to question things that you see your mentor is doing, that you find can be, you know, it's like, I don't think, for example, that if we're putting a land acknowledgement at the beginning of a show, that this should be what it says, or things like that. Having the space to just bring up these kinds of things that are important, at least for me, that were important to me, was what is really what drives me to delve deeper into mentorship. And certainly I hope that more artists can take advantage of opportunities like this, and that in the future too, that this is something that I can offer to other artists who are seeking kind of just like a way to, I guess, to be a little less clueless about the industry, because really we're all making up as we go along. So,
well, it's funny that you mentioned the industry. You know, my next question is less a question and more of just getting a sense of your impressions of this. There's a marvelous cultural worker and a consultant and festival curator named Fanny Martin here in Toronto. And one of the ideas that she has brought to the fore is that we might think as arts administrators, less as administrators and more as cultural designers, which is a term that's used more in Europe and especially in France than it is here in Canada. And I wonder just how that term, you know, do you think that's a better reflection of the way that you do work? I certainly think it is, but I'd love to know, you know, your thoughts on it.
That's actually the first time that can't speak English, I've heard that term. But certainly I think it's applicable to this kind of work, and really to the work that so many artists are trying to do now. Specifically like artists from marginalized backgrounds and identities. Like this is, you know, not to kind of make that experience as into one just monolithic experience, but essentially, you know, a lot of artists that have experienced a form of oppression one way or another in their lives have so much story to tell. And I think now, being in the communities that I'm part of, working in them, I can see that that these artists have a different way of working, and it's knowing how to build relationships, I think, with these artists and with their communities, that is key. And you're right. Like, I think the term, is it cultural design? Yeah, I think the term cultural design is applicable with a very limited and almost non-existent knowledge that I have of it. So it seems applicable as a term, because you're right. It's not just administration. I think now, it's creating a different way of working. And certainly that speaks to so many different experiences within an artistic workspace. It's not just from the creative practice. It is with organizational practice, how we talk about mental health, how we talk about identity, and how we talk about anti-harassment and policies and childcare, like all of these things. And I can go on and on and on, but essentially, yeah, cultural design it's more than just administration. It's more than just facilitating the system that already exists that has been harmful to a lot of people.
Thanks, Renee. This was wonderful. Thanks again for sharing your work and talking about it. And we'll talk lots more about it afterward. Up next, we have a duo, Adrian Berry and Hayley James. Adrian Berry is a performer and composer. They have been playing saxophone and singing for 18 years. To date, they have performed over 350 shows with 22 bands in North America and Europe. They currently play with Ted Leo and the Pharmacists, Gauche, while developing their solo project Gold Cove. They have contributed to 6 studio albums and over 20 recordings across numerous projects and genres at studios like Steve Albini's Electrical Audio, and with sound engineers such as Jonah Takagi and Austin Brown of Parquet Courts. Hayley James is an experienced violin teacher from Toronto, Ontario. She's currently pursuing her PhD in music education at the University of Toronto, with research interests in arts-based methodologies, early childhood instrumental lessons, and cross-cultural education philosophies. She holds a Bachelor of Music from the University of Toronto and a Master of Philosophy in Arts, Creativity, and Education from the University of Cambridge. Adrian and Hayley, welcome.
Hi. Oh my gosh, thanks everybody. It was so exciting to hear about Adam and Renee, your practices and your experience as a cultural worker. And Renee, you really just brought us right into our presentation. Because when we were writing the presentation, we were like, what is entrepreneurship to us in the work that we do? And, at the core, I think it's a challenge, recognizing a challenge and figuring out how to respond in an innovative way, but in also a thoughtful way, in a way that I think that everyone involved in these projects we're going to be talking about, we try to figure out a way in which we can improve our lives and thrive and keep making art, which makes everything better. The 2 research projects that we're going to be focusing on today focus on the same challenge, and that's precariousness in the arts sector. Specifically, Toronto arts workers and art organizations were vulnerable prior to the pandemic, during the pandemic, after, this post kind of not quite post-pandemic world, due to limited resources, years of sector-wide financial precarity, chasmic societal inequalities. The list goes on and on. It's hard being a cultural worker. And, COVID-19 has only exacerbated these challenges. And both of our projects respond in the same way, through arts-based research centered on creating more sustainable and reciprocal relationships between the public, University of Toronto, or you could think of it as academic bodies, arts workers, and arts organizations.
Yeah, so this research and the 2 projects we're going to be talking about definitely require a team effort, which is why we are here together. Last summer, Adrian and I met, and we've been so lucky to become so close and colleagues and friends through this process. So we were hired as graduate research assistants to work with a multidisciplinary team of researchers here at U of T. So Nassim Nicknaffs, Laura Risk, and Eli Lionbloom. And we have all some sort of connection with the arts, specifically through music. And it was really no surprise to any of us that arts programming, arts organizations, especially smaller organizations like collectives and nonprofits, as well as independent artists, were struggling. They were closed down and really trying to survive by any means necessary due to these challenges that Adrian mentioned, both COVID related, but also a lot more long-standing inequities. So for us, we're adopting these broader terms of cultural workers or arts workers to refer to any individual whose labor facilitates the production of goods or services within the cultural and creative industry. So going beyond just music to also look at painters, sculptors, dancers, poets, writers, the list goes on. And for us as arts workers, as musicians, as music educators as well, within academia, we were really kind of questioning the system at hand. So we were asking things like, how do we shift from just surviving and trying to make it through the day-to-day to more sustainable ways of living and working? What needs to change? Who decides what that change looks like and whether it's enough? And what happens after the pandemic? What would be a sustainable post-pandemic reality in which artists and cultural workers could actually flourish? And, a bigger question is, how do we prepare for whatever future pandemics are to come? So as Adrian mentioned, we're going after these questions and these challenges through research and through arts-based research, which is combining artistic considerations with research considerations. And it's really intended to kind of support this process of exploring, reaching broader audiences, so getting some of this academic research out to the publics and out to the people who need to hear it, unsettling some of this dominant thinking around both research and artistic practice, amplifying marginalized perspectives, fostering participation, and central to the projects we're going to discuss, deepening understanding both ethically and creatively. So the two research projects that emerged from all of this questioning are the Artist Spreadsheet and Sustainable Partnerships, and both are centered on one question: how to support vulnerable artists in a precarious sector. In hindsight, Adrian and I kind of led the way with this Artist Broadsheet project, and it was very much a pilot project or a small-scale dress rehearsal for this current, much larger project that we're working on with our interdisciplinary team. And the goal of this larger project is really to transform these individual narratives of artists' lives, their professional paths, into broader change within policy that in turn will affect the sector, the city, as well as these individual artists. So Adrian's going to share this first project, the Artist's Broadsheet.
Okay, gonna let everybody just take it in for a moment. So what are we looking at? So the Artist's Broadsheet, subtitle Imagining a Post-Pandemic Reality, is an interactive website that we created with a small grant that we got this past summer through the University of Toronto COVID-19 Pandemic Fund. And this interactive website is in the form of a grocery coupon broadsheet. And so some of us, depending on how old we are, might remember that in the Sunday paper, there were lots of coupons. And people would cut them out and provide discounts on basic needs like food and home goods. And so we wanted to take this idea and think about, we're talking about necessary core workers during the pandemic and thinking about how necessary and core art workers are. Mm-hmm. And so applying this idea of the coupon to represent, to bring us into that conversation of like, these are basic needs of a healthy society. So we commissioned 7 international artists, artist collaborators, to create their own coupons using a template that we gave them. And when clicked, each coupon, you could see it in all of its glory, very large, and then you can flip it over. And you can see a multimedia asset that each artist created. And so all are distinct works of art that provide a glimpse into the artist's pandemic experience and their hopes for the future in a way that is creative, intimate, and very raw. So we're going to show you a bit of Geist.
Outside at last, and more each day, as if it could shake your hand. On the horizon, the potential for a brighter future beams closer than ever. This past year, you may have had it bad, worse, had to think outside the box, all while being trapped inside one. Yes. This plight was universal, but I'm only really speaking to a select few. The freaks, the mavericks, the poets, the virtuosos, the artists. We've been granted an incredible opportunity. Odd sounding, I know. But I know what you want. Because I want it too. That big cultural shift that for years you fantasized about, that you discussed, complained, and argued about on message boards until 3, 4, 5 a.m. It's here. A world ravaged by contagion. Imagine what we can build from the ashes. I see a world where the artist is respected as a hard worker, valued for their talent, unique perspectives, and their lifelong contribution to culture. A world where the artist is fucking paid. I want to see some money in your hands. Make a living from what you do, what you create. Obliterate the bourgeois red tape and exploitation. We needed access yesterday. Black people needed access many yesterdays. Where does the artist go when they build a condo on top of where we once worked? I want to see more studios, warehouses, vast affordable spaces for us to create and showcase, share. We need to rise above the petty drama, envy, and follower count. We must unite and create a better art scene.
And our choice of there's quite a bit more, and I really encourage you to go to the website, the Artist Spreadsheet, theartistspreadsheet.com. And so our choice of using coupons is, also a bit tongue in cheek. The Artist Spreadsheet, or we always call it tabs, is intended to play with the absurdity also of taking what an artist or a cultural worker offers to society and confining it in a little standardized, narrowly defined little capitalist tool of a box. So one of our other artist collaborators is a trio, Jason Lee, Beans and Bun, and Respectful Child, all Toronto artists. And they created this place called Llama Land. To imagine it deep in your own mind, because apparently the internet isn't going to show us. As a scrolling artifact, Tabs captures this moment in the art community. Through commissioning and creating art, we're seeking to jointly imagine a world where art and the cultural sector can flourish as we emerge from this pandemic and prepare for whatever future pandemics are to come. Another a collaborator from the UK, this artist, Pink Pound, created a musical audio track. Thank you, Pink Pound. So it was really exciting that as music students, we were able to lead a research project from beginning to end, from it just being an idea to hiring a graphic designer to help us realize this kind of like wild, colorful vision that we were having. One of my our favorite parts was just paying artists, finding the capital and creating this project and finding these avenues to pay them during this time to make these pieces of art. And then also creating like this website that would host all these perspectives and ideas and just, again, be this like scrolling artifact that we will be taking more and more contributions and more coupons. And so it'll be a further expression of how things are going, how people are feeling, what they want, what they don't have. Yeah, and we're taking this spirit of collaboration to the next step through our current project, Sustainable Partnerships, subtitle being Collaboration and Reciprocity in Creative Cities.
So moving forward, we're really taking this up to the next level. Sustainable Partnerships is also an arts-based research project that's really focused on community engagement and centering on reciprocity between the public, the University of Toronto, arts workers, and arts organizations. And it's funded through the School of Cities here at U of T. So through curating and through just making art, this project is intending to highlight the artistic and cultural works of local community members while cultivating these more sustainable relationships between the cultural sector and the university so that there is more movement of these resources that are so needed. We are going to be commissioning 15 artists for this project from across all artistic disciplines to create new works based on their experiences during the pandemic and also beyond with that larger story. These works are going to be shared through a traveling exhibit about 1 to 3 weeks per site that articulates the issues that arts workers and arts organizations are facing. And with these exhibits, each site is intended to serve as a space to develop solutions that really center the artist experience in response to what has been times of really unprecedented upheaval, and map out some next steps for the cultural sector and higher education institutions in Toronto. So this larger project, Sustainable Partnerships, is divided into 3 components that just started January of this year, will be going all the way till April of 2023. So we will have this touring exhibition with artist-centered interactive keynotes, workshops, and these commissioned art pieces. There will also be a podcast series to complement these exhibitions, as well as a report that summarizes our findings, makes some policy recommendations, all of which is informed by the lived experiences of artists as communicated through art. So we're still in the early phases of this project. We're very excited.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
We know it's a lot of words. We can't wait to show you the pictures and the video and to get you there.
Yeah, it's all talk right now, but there is some very exciting elements coming. So we are at this point expecting these exhibitions to happen in fall, winter of 2022, early 2023, along with this ongoing podcast series that will feature episodes with artists, collaborators, with other stakeholders, those who attend the exhibition. So stay tuned. There's lots of opportunities to get involved. Of course, you can just attend and take in the amazingness of the exhibitions, listen to the podcast episodes, attend some of these keynotes and workshops. There's also, the opportunity to volunteer to help with some of the logistics of putting on this type of project and these exhibitions, as well as another opportunity to really kind of get involved and to kind of join us as part of the curatorial team leading up to the exhibitions, as well as during, to kind of program some performances in the space and host some artist discussions and just contribute to, I think, what will be a very, very awesome experience for everyone. There's also ongoing opportunities to contribute to the Artist Spreadsheet, as Adrian mentioned, so give that a Google, and there will be other opportunities as well to check out Sustainable Partnerships online. So that's what we've been up to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Adrian and Hayley, thank you so much. It's really a treat for me as someone who gets to work with you. on the day-to-day on these projects, to just stop and reflect on how much work has been done and all the exciting prospects for the future of this. I see that the artist broadsheet URL has also been posted in Hopin, so I strongly encourage all of you to take a look, explore, give it lots of time, and think about what it means. While you were talking, I thought about a phrase that was circulating really early on in the pandemic, say, exactly 2 years ago, or maybe a week 2 years ago, over social media, when we're all watching these free house concerts on Instagram and seeing news stories about quarantine folks singing from their balconies. And it said, and I'm paraphrasing, remember when the pandemic started, you turned to artists and they took their labor without pay and performed. And as you showed in that Geist video, it's such a great video, mentioning the cultural shift and the demand that we, and I'll paraphrase again, that we get the artist paid. And it reminds me of something that I heard in arts consultation years ago now, that whenever an artist creates something, anything, somebody gets paid, and sometimes it isn't the artist. So I was wondering, what changes do you think we need to give artists more agency over their own work? And how can higher education intervene and support artists and participate in that process?
Yeah, I think the main point that we're trying to drive home with these projects is that as people that are part of academia, we have access that other people in the community don't have access. That we have access to resources that other people don't, especially artists that are outside of the university. And so really just, we've talked about just how there's so many policy papers and so many people studying like the art sector and things like that. And what is it all trying to add up to? And it really is just, we need to pay artists. And so with these projects, like we're really just trying to find that money, secure that money that we are privileged to have access to, and then redistribute it out and allow them to build their portfolios, to get their work out there. And like on these themes that we're talking about, we want to hear what they have to say about them. We want to hear what artists and cultural workers have to say, and we want them to do it through the thing that they do best, through their art. And so we're really hoping that these projects are kind of an experimentation in reciprocity and what that looks like, and the movement of siloed resources, and how the university can be a better community member. I don't know if you...
Yeah, absolutely, Adrian. I'll kind of echo that. And I think sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between the university and the community. And I think the university can take a bit more initiative to kind of break down that divide. And we're really excited to do that through art, and specifically kind of working closer with the artistic community to find that relationship, that collaboration, and what that could look like kind of moving forward. To borrow another cliche from the pandemic, I think we need a new normal. And hopefully we'll learn from what we've experienced over like 2 years almost to the day, and take that moving forward to an exciting new future where, these questions will continue to be asked, and this bigger question of paying artists, of developing, the policy that needs to happen, of changing funding structures, all of that can happen.
But it's a really mammoth thing. Just thinking about how much, myself as a touring musician before the pandemic, I was on the road for almost 6-7 years, and then pandemic hits. I'm in Toronto. I'm not traveling anymore. Like, I decided to keep practicing my art through the music technology and digital media program at U of T. And it's like my whole practice is changing and becoming more digital, and everybody's practice is becoming more digital. And who holds that ability? Who says how much things are worth? And it's so, it feels like in terms of monetary return, it feels very far away from many of us, like how many TikTok plays our songs get, or, it's just fractions of pennies. And so really, like on the local level, trying to figure out these ways to get paid, even, a panel presentation like this, it's very important that we get paid for our work, and our time. So,
Thank you both. Along similar lines, I was wondering if you could tell me about the experience of curating and presenting what is really an incredibly, perhaps the most vulnerable part of artists' lives, which is just the interaction between their creative practice and how they survive, how they make their living making art. So tell me about, what did it feel like to connect with these artists and start off with, maybe it's someone you didn't know before, and your welcome to them is, a request to disclose something very personal. What did that feel like?
Yeah, I think for us, relationships were front and center as we were figuring out how to reach out to artists and kind of where we wanted to take the Artist Broadsheet in particular. We were also mindful that, arts organizations and collectives and some of these individuals we would be reaching out to are dealing with so much right now because of the pandemic and just their daily operations. So we didn't want to add to that burden and to that work. So we pulled on our personal networks. That was important to us to make sure there was some relationship already established. But we were also lucky to work with some new collaborators through this project. And we did a lot of one-on-one communicating. We were very mindful about what was going to be involved, the flexibility that needed to be built into that, as well as the compensation. So that was a learning experience for us, and it worked well as a collaboration between not only Adrian and myself, but also the artists, and making sure everyone felt comfortable with what we were offering, what we were requiring. So keeping those channels of communication open was very important. And that happened a couple times where those conversations happened, and I think they were beneficial for everyone, and that really contributed to this final product.
Yeah, and when we were thinking about doing this project, we were like, so we created like a coupon template. So we could almost like a Mad Libs kind of situation where we were like, okay, you get to pick like a big number, pick 2 to 3 numbers. You get to pick a small superscript. And so giving everybody a theme and then giving them kind of these like little boundaries to operate in, and then like this much more open boundary of like totally whatever media you want. It could have been a poem, it could have been an essay, it could have been, a picture of a sculpture, it could have been anything that they could send to us as like the multimedia asset. And, even during the process of creating the website, which was a whole other creative process, we had an amazing conversation with one of the web designers that we found, in which like we were able to talk about, what they needed as a cultural worker to feel compensated for the work they were doing. And it was just like a really, I think, like loving, awesome, like learning opportunity for all of us. And also, to talk about like, why am I so uncomfortable with saying what I'm worth, and practicing that, especially as like, all like female bodied people, and like asserting ourselves and like talking about like, what do I need to feel like I'm appreciated? And I think that, going forward with the Sustainable Partnerships Project is this opportunity to just like up the ante. We have like more funding. We could get more artists involved on a larger scale, and pay them even better this time. And some of those artists are going to be from the Artist Broadsheet. And so, the Artist Broadsheet being kind of this like this fun, but also like really intimate doorway into just another network, right? Because we're really like we're culturally designing. We're creating these networks. We're creating these opportunities and making space for things to happen, which is so exciting.
Well, I mean, as a team member, I'm incredibly excited for us to continue this work, and all of the conversations that we have with different artists and organizations, they're always just filled with enthusiasm and for these kinds of changes, and to participate in that. So thank you so much. I want to open things up to discussion amongst all of us. I have a couple of themes that I'd like for us to touch on, but if this is really sort of an opportunity for all of us to speak about what we're most excited about for the prospects and the future prospects about the work that you are doing now. But I'd like to ask, and maybe Adam, if you'd like to start, I'd love to know, tell me more about your musical community and how you collaborate with them. How has that changed over time? Yeah, I'd love to know what you're working on and how it happens.
For sure. I mean, with COVID, I was in Toronto, and so I came back to my family just to take care of the folks and my grandmother, and so that they became my community, as I'm sure a lot of people became communities with their either roommates or family. And so during that, I guess now 2 years, geez, yeah, working with my mom became something that was really prominent in my life and difficult, but at the same time really beautiful. Her music is very intense and very good songwriter, and yeah, through the use of technology, I was able to help kind of become sort of a foundation for her to be able to, because she doesn't know like the technology of recording and stuff. She's like a traditional kind of guitar singer, songwriter, folk singer. So it was really important and nice to develop that relationship with her and help kind of create her songs and give her that voice. And yeah, so that became, that became like the big project for me. And then I was sort of throughout the pandemic trying to figure out ways to do stuff collaboratively online, which, as I'm sure everyone here knows, is really tough with like latency and like how do you jam with people in real time. I got decent at it. I started to figure out how to use Discord and sharing like in a super technical way, like getting Ableton, and I even reached out to some person trying to do some basically like high quality, quick live stream audio thing. Anyway, so I was able to, with Doubler and just with recording abilities, I was able to do some Ableton recording, collaborating with the Free Kind out in Europe, which was really nice. And I find that when it comes to writing lyrics for people who don't speak English as a first language, I think it kind of pushes you to write better. I find it's an interesting experience because I always felt like, so as a lyricist, they would always ask me to explain my lyrics, and I think I would maybe hide behind metaphors or analogies and stuff, but when you have to really break it down, it's like Einstein, E equals MC squared. Like you have to take these really complicated concepts and be able to break it down to something very simple. And so I found that by working collaboratively with them and with other people, I just was able to take really difficult and deep song like lyrics and concepts and really break it down to something simple that they could understand. And yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but yeah, that's sort of been my community who I've been working with is these women in Slovenia and Croatia, and then my mom in Canada. And I'm hoping that now we're in the post-pandemic world, more shows and more things will start to open up. But I'm just sort of taking it bit by bit, and yeah.
Thanks, Adam. I so appreciate you talking about the process of composing and co-writing, and especially this idea that music and art in general can take really complex ideas and turn them into something beautiful and welcoming and approachable. And that is actually a wonderful way to make inroads to talking about what you might call the hard stuff. And I think all of the projects that have been presented today do that in one way or another. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I want to invite Renee and Adrian and Hayley to think a little bit more about the musical community, if there's something you'd like to say about that.
I'll jump in real quick. I mean, I'm already developing a song cycle that speaks to the Filipino-Canadian immigrant experience. So a lot of my music making too has been that. And I've found that, because now I feel more comfortable talking about my non-Canadian identity and within Canadian spaces, that I've found more people kind of like interested in this type of work. For example, I've done a couple of projects with composer Alice Ho for the Virtual Museum of Asian Canadian Heritage. So it's kind of just like finding all of these sort of like artists that kind of have the same, I don't know, same values, interested in the same things, and comfortable with other artists speaking to things that they don't know about. And cultural identity is that. And even within the Asian community, it's incredibly diverse. And to be able to connect with other Asian artists that bring, you know, their own cultural identity to the works that they create and their perform has been such a joy.
Adrian and Hayley, anything you'd like to add to that?
I think it was just such a grounding experience to just start receiving all of the contributions to the Artist Broadsheet, like during this time where, you know, we were getting really deep into the pandemic, and just to see your own thoughts, to see thoughts different than yours being reflected in these works. And it's just like a very important, just a very important thing to see, like as an artist, when, you know, like I was saying, I personally, you know, have felt in some ways like I was trying to find my like artistic footing again after, you know, not touring anymore. And who am I when I'm not, you know, these are all questions that we ask ourselves. Who are we when we're not recording, or when we're not like working on a project, and when something is finished, you know. And I think that that's, you know, reflective of the precarity of being an artist, these ups and downs, these like really kind of like fallow periods of work, you know, followed by like really intense periods of work. And I think that, you know, during the pandemic and through a lot of the art that was made for the Artist Broadsheet, that we could really see like what we all do when we're on our own, like what, you know, like how we're processing this, like this period that's just exceptional.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to that. In terms of the feedback we received from our artist collaborators and participants, it was overwhelmingly positive. And I think that just spoke to the need for community, and for redefining what that community is going to look like. So for us, yeah, that was a really meaningful part of the experience.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. One thing that I'm noticing, a pattern for all three of you, is that, you know, there are new titles that you can add to your CV or your LinkedIn, but that something has changed for you, that there's been real skill building and capacity building that's taken place over the last couple of years, as curators, producers, technologists, or even brand reps. What does that feel like? Tell me about that experience of developing these new skills when you already have really strong expertise in music. It just exists elsewhere. So how do they work together, and what's that been like?
Starts very stressfully. I will just acknowledge that.
I can appreciate it.
It's very hard. I mean, you know, I think when you start out, you know, when I think a lot of artists, like, you start out thinking that you'll be a performer and you'll tour and you'll get all these contracts, be able to do everything independently. And you don't realize that there is an entirely different practical side to that world. It's not just somebody taking you on for you to be able to present your work. And I think, I'm speaking for myself, like the skill sets came because they were necessary. And I was beginning to find that my training as a performer wasn't enough for me to feel fulfilled as an artist as a whole and as a human being, because my interests were shifting. And getting a new set of skills and having the space to hone them obviously has been incredibly valuable, but also it forces you to acknowledge that there are so many things that you don't know, and that actually you need community to be able to fulfill them, because in many cases, you don't even get this sort of like skills training within educational institutions. You have to, I guess, seek them out for yourself, and then in that process, find people whose values align with yours, and that can be very, very hard. So it's been a joyful experience, but it can be very stressful, but even in the joy, it can be very stressful.
I would maybe add to that too. I feel like the pandemic gave me the permission to stop. You know, you're just always hustling. You know, tour, people are just like, oh, you're living your dream. It's so amazing. It's hard work. It's exhausting. It's underpaid work. It's hardly paid work. And, you know, I feel so thankful that I gave myself also, you know, that I think maybe Renee, you're talking a bit about like that process of just kind of like letting go and kind of like mourning like other identities that like connections that we had with like our artistic identity and growing into something new and something strange and trying new things and also wondering like, where is this going to go? Like how, you know, I personally, from my experience, like feeling like, how am I going to get to a place that feels at least where I was before? Mm-hmm. But I just really appreciate, you know, I came into school thinking I wanted to do audio engineering, you know, I could get more work like if I'm producing music for other people and just finding myself just absolutely enamored with like creating videos, using like visual programming, creating just like these narrative like story-based worlds where I'm exploring, you know, very like complex things through like visual and audio art. So it's so exciting and it's so terrifying, and it's 2.5 weeks before my thesis presentation, and I can't wait to be set free into this terrifying, beautiful new world.
Adam, is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I agree in the sense that, yeah, that COVID did allow things to slow down, which I think was really important. And I think I still do struggle though with like, yeah, that going from project to project and like, what is life without these projects? Because yeah, in one way they're validating, like getting like an Arts Council award, or I got a job to teach college audio. Like I say, like I went into the program thinking I would get into audio production. Now I'm teaching it. And I'm just like almost a bit of what's that called? When you feel like you don't belong, imposter syndrome, you know, and then you get these validations and you're like, I think I belong. So I still actually deal with that. but then, yeah, no, it's like, here I am talking about being in the industry and doing interesting things. And it's like, I guess. And, yeah, just still, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out. But the projects, I think I also really, I did find though, even though I was able to calm down and focus and make some great art with my mom and also look internally, I also did realize that these projects and these things do motivate me, and it's nice to make art and get it out to people. I think when I was completely cut off by humanity during COVID, it was sort of took a little bit of the fire away from my artistry. So I think I like both, having that quiet time to be able to figure out what it is that I want to say and work on. But it's nice to have these, you know, whatever they are, goals, things, shows, performances, these things add a lot of kind of are a bit of a northern star to kind of work towards. That's what I've been figuring out lately in the last few weeks.
Well, thank you so much, Adam, Renee, Adrian, and Hayley. I hope everyone on Hopin enjoyed this. We've gotten a lot of great feedback. I won't read it out, but it's all there. And I hope that this gave you all a better sense of what music entrepreneurship and innovation means in the case of these projects that are being done and the way that we're conceptualizing it as a musical community, and really multiple musical communities. And it's such a pleasure to have our alum back to talk about it and to have current students talk about their projects. And I thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and please tune in to the other sessions at Entrepreneurship Week. Thanks so much.